A few miles north of Omaha is a park that holds much myth, mystery, and murder. Hummel Park is a place that has had multiple murders, a devil's slide, a devil's staircase, lynchings, cannibal albinos, and disc golf. What is truth? What is mystery? And what is myth? Stick with me and we'll find out together. If you're joining me for the first time, I'd like to say welcome. If you're returning, I'd like to say thank you for coming back. I very much appreciate the patronage. Please subscribe to see weekly true crimes, myth, and mysteries. Please like and share my video. I try to respond to all comments, and I also have started taking requests for future videos. My traveling companion is not here at the moment. I don't know where she is, but hopefully she'll join before the end. Hummel Park was donated to the city of Omaha in 1930 and was named after Omaha Park Superintendent J.B. Hummel. It is a 202-acre murky forest that rises up from the Missouri River floodplain. The hilly park offers a great hiking experience. Many people come here for the disc golf course as well. In 1822, the area was called Fort Robideau after trapper Joseph Robideau, but previously it was a fur trading post named Fort Lisa after Manuel Lisa. This is where many expeditions heading north and west would stop to outfit their party prior to leaving. Native American tribes like the Omaha Pawnee and Loway traded their furs for goods there. After Lisa's death, the post was taken over by Joseph Pritchard. He abandoned the post and went to Bellevue. So the exact location of the fort has faded into the hills and the trees, along with supposed Native American burial grounds. They've never really located those, but they've said that there are burial grounds there. Could this add to some of the myth and mystery that happens there? I don't know. As previously stated, there are many myths and mysteries that happen at Hummel Park, one of which is the cannibal albino colony. It's supposed to be hidden somewhere in the woods. I mean, it's only 202 acres, but it is very thick woods. There's never been any sighting or evidence, but the myth still holds on. They say that there's even a path that leads to the hidden refuge. Atop the lookout tower on the eastern side, there's a path that leads down to it. When I was there, you could see the shape of the trail going down, but it's extremely rough terrain. So I'm not totally sure about it. And although it's one of the biggest myths, there's not really much said about it. So I don't know. On the northwestern part of the park is the Devil's Staircase. It's a steep stone staircase that's pretty much crumbling away. It's supposed to have 188 steps, but many say that the numbers change. If you count going up and then count coming back down, you should have different numbers. It's said that if you ever come up with the same number, your death is imminent. I tried going up the steps and I made it to about 50, but I'm way too out of shape to go all the way up and down it. But it's beautiful terrain. I mean, it's very beautiful over there. And I guess I would have feared that if I came up with the same number, something bad would happen to me. I don't want to take chances. Straight east of the Devil's Staircase is the Devil's Slide. It's hidden in the cliffs on the edge of the park. And when I was out there, I could not find it. But they say that many people have taken their own lives out there. Doing research, I could not find any evidence of this. Not saying that it's not true, though, but I don't know. I guess it's all a matter of opinion. With all this devil talk, um, people have said that they have satanic worshiping out there and sacrifice and mutilations and things like that, but I could not find any evidence to substantiate those claims. So this is the only thing I want to say about the satanic cult stuff, but not saying that it didn't happen or doesn't happen, but there's no evidence in the books showing that it happened. The last myth I could find about the park had to deal with the hanging trees. They form like a canopy over the roads as you drive down it. Many people say that it is because of lynchings that happened in the early 1900s. It's said that many of these lynchings happened during the Red Summer of 1919. This is an event that I never heard of, but possibly we'll do an episode on later on. Unfortunately, there's no records of any of this happening. I couldn't find any documented accounts. So you would think that there would be some records or something about it. And I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm sure some of that happened, but I could not find the evidence for it. It's just one of those, I guess, urban legends, tall tales, fables to scare the children at night. I'm not sure. The one reality of the park is the amount of crime and murders that have happened there. I have located at least 7 prime examples of the events that have been documented that happened there. I mean, I do use the term documented loosely because for the first murder was in 1933. There's mentions of a radio repairman that was murdered out in the park, but I can't find any evidence about it, police report or anything like that. It just has mentions multiple times that in 1933 a radio repairman was murdered out there. On October 11th, 1947, a drunk driver ran into a hayrack ride, killing one person. Harold Schutler was driving intoxicated out of Hummel Park when he met this hayride going northbound. The car swerved into the wagon and continued a ways down the road. Freddie Freeling, Freddie Freeling was a member of that ride. He was flung from the wagon and was located about 36 feet from it. He died as a result of those injuries. And this next crime has a trigger warning. It's dealing with sexual assault. So if that's something that might trigger you and upset you in any way, shape, or form, I'm sorry. If I did it correctly, I should have the time stamp right here where to fast forward to bypass this part. That being said, I am trying not to go into much detail about some of these crimes because some of them are pretty gruesome. And, I know that you want to hear about the true crime and everything, but I'm still not sure about YouTube's policy on how in depth I can get with the stuff. So I'm trying to be cautious a little bit at the moment. On July 30th, 1954, Richard Brockman was charged in the crime of rape. Both he and the victim were both 19 years old. Rosemary Gray and her three friends, Laura, Luann, and Joan, went to a home in Omaha to meet some girls to hang out. Upon arrival, the girls weren't home, so they just sat there on the stoop waiting. Soon, a convertible with four boys pulled up and started talking to the girls. They decided to go miniature golfing. Rosemary sat in the front seat next to Brockman, to her right. On her left sat Laura, and next to Laura was the driver. The driver's name was Bob Morse. The other two girls and two boys got into the back seat. They drove to a bar, and the boys obtained some whiskey. The girls wouldn't take any, and they just wanted to go home, but the boys agreed that they would take a shortcut to get them home. Eventually, they arrived in an isolated area of Hummel Park. The boys got out and went to the back of the car to talk. The girls were unsure what was going on and were kind of fearful because they wanted to go home. Rosemary stated that Brockman asked her to get out of the car, but she refused. So he started pulling at her, trying to yank her out of the car. She pinned herself pretty good, and her friend Laura tried to hold her in by like wrapping her arms around her waist, but the driver yanked her away, preventing her from saving Rosemary from getting pulled out of the car. He eventually pulled her down about 15 feet away. He slapped her multiple times and kept ripping at her clothing. She kept yelling for Luann and trying to pull herself away. That's when he started choking her and hitting her repeatedly in the face. This is when he raped her. The court documents went a lot deeper into this, but like I said, I'm not going to push the bounds right now. When he was done, Rosemary returned to the car with her body and clothing all tore asunder. The boys drove them to an alley near where their car was parked. One of the boys said that if you go to the police with this, we're going to find you and we're going to kill you. So, hoping that would stop them from tattling on them, I guess. Once home, though, Rosemary went to her mother. She was dirty, swollen. Her eyes and face were black and blue. Her jaw was swollen. Her lips were bruised. Her mom decided to take her to the hospital because somebody that was living with them said that she needed to go. At the hospital, she was examined and determined that she was forcibly raped and had been a virgin. There was semen present, and the report went into great detail, but it was pretty graphic, and like I said, trying to weed off censors. Brockman was arrested. He was found guilty and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Not long enough, in my opinion, but I couldn't really find anything else that happened to his friends, or if they were charged for conspiracy or aiding and abetting or anything like that, or if they did anything to the other girls. But this was the predominant one. Yeah, I don't have anything. It's just it's sad, and I hopefully that she went on with her life and that it didn't affect her too bad. Well, somebody decided to join me finally. Hi, how you doing? On April 10th, 1983, a group of ladies of the night killed one of their own and dumped her body in Hummel Park. Laura LaPointe's body was left in a heavily wooded area outside Hummel Park. Along with her body was an empty bottle of brandy, a tree limb that was 3 inches long, or sorry, 3 inches thick and 6 feet long. A bit of a distraction. Sorry. You're going to lay down or are you just going to sit there? Originally, three prostitutes were the prime suspect. They were Geraldine Carr, Lorraine Rachel Smith, also known as Baby Girl, and Carol Joy. But then on June 24th, Joe Helen Robertson was held on warrants and started talking to somebody at the police station about the LaPointe murder. She stated that she and the four previous named women were driving around on April 10th with four pimps. The pimps stated that they wanted to teach LaPointe a lesson, so they were looking for her. Robertson said that she wanted no part of it and asked to get out. The following day, she said that she ran into Joy, and Joy explained how the two pimps beat LaPointe to death with baseball bats in the park. The officers listened to her interview and saw many contradicting statements. Eventually, the officers pieced together and arrested all four women. It was found that the four women were out driving around and wanted to rob some unwilling male. Instead, they saw LaPointe and decided to roll her for the money. Robertson, Joy, and LaPointe were in the back seat of the car, and they told her that they wanted some money. LaPointe said she didn't have any money, and they forced her to disrobe, and they searched her and all of her clothes. And all they found was $25, and they're kind of upset about that. So Robertson used a straight razor and started cutting LaPointe's hair. With the razor, she got minor nicks and cuts on her face and neck. They tore off her necklace, and they decided to drive around to find a John for LaPointe to obtain some money from them. They ended up at Hummel Park, and for some odd reason forced LaPointe to have oral sex with Joy. There was nothing else said about it. I don't know what they were doing, but sometime after midnight, they ended up in Hummel Park. LaPointe, Joy, and Robertson got out of the car. This is where Joy and Robertson took turns beating LaPointe to death with a softball bat and a stick. They left her body there and threw her clothing in a trash can once back in Omaha. Robertson, Joy, and Smith were all sentenced to life in prison. Carr pled guilty to being an accessory and got 1 year in prison. From what I could find, Carr ended up dying in prison. Smith is still incarcerated. And Robertson's another story. The court reversed her conviction, stating that Joy's trial tainted Robertson's trial. The court called for a new trial to be held for Robertson, but I looked and I could not find anything about a second trial or whatever happened to Robertson. Checking the inmate database for Nebraska, I could not find Robertson ever in there. So I guess that's a mystery in its own of what happened with her. This next crime, I would also say, has a trigger warning. There's not really any description or anything that should trigger, but it's still about a sexual assault. That being said, I should have the timestamp here if I figured out how to do it. In 1986, James Sherrod was convicted of first-degree sexual assault of a 17-year-old girl. Her name has been redacted from the courts, so I'll just use this term survivor when I describe her. She was in a parking lot waiting for a friend when she first met Sherrod. He was 34 at the time, though he told her he was only 27. The two visited and exchanged numbers. He called her upwards of 3 times a day, repeatedly. On June 7th of 1986, she was walking in her neighborhood when Sheridan drove up and asked her to get in. So they went driving around, and after a bit, he stopped at a liquor store, got some booze, went to his brother's home, then went to his sister's apartment, and then to McDonald's. After that, he drove her out to Hummel Park. This is when he sexually assaulted her. She attempted to fight back, but he threatened to beat her and told her that he had a gun. He told her that he had not been with a woman in a long time because he was in prison and that he needed this. During the trial, a 16-year-old was called up to the stand, and apparently in March of 2000 or March of 1986, he had gotten her number, called her 4 or 5 times a day, and they ended up meeting up, went to the liquor store in Carter Lake, and then went to Hummel Park. She attempted to fight him back, and he said he had a gun. After raping her, he told her that it was because he hadn't been with a woman in a long time. The court found him to be a habitual criminal and was in prison until May 4th of 2020. Other than that, there was not much else I could find on the on Sheridan. On October 8th, 1992, Jeremy Herman called Jeremy Drake to meet up to get some marijuana and go smoke it. He thought that Drake knew somebody or did it himself, but stole his stereo equipment. They used to be close, but recently they became estranged. And before meeting Herman, he attempted to get a shotgun from Masters, but Masters wanted to go along with Herman. They met him, and Drake got into the back seat. They drove to Hanscom Park, where Masters revealed that he had a gun. They questioned Drake, but he swore he knew nothing. Masters struck Drake, causing a contact to fall out. He started crying, stating that he knew nothing. Masters then said he was going to blow his guts all over the back seat of the car unless he said something. Drake finally stated that Bobby Barrett had taken the speakers and directed them to his house. Once at Barrett's home, Herman went over and talked to him. Shortly after Herman came back, the three of them left. There was no say of what happened with the stereo or anything like that, so I'm leaving it out, I guess. Herman decided to drive out to Hummel Park. The whole time, Herman and Masters were talking about if they should let Drake live or die. At the park, they went to Lookout Point and exited the car. Masters and Drake walked down the path into the woods, and after several minutes, Herman heard a gunshot. Masters came back and stated that he accidentally shot Drake and that he was dead. Mind you, this is the same, over near the same path where the albino refuge is, so I don't know if that's a coincidence. Shannon Shaw testified in court that Masters took him to Hummel Park to see the body. He stated that Drake was instructed to get down on his knees on the ground and put his hands behind his head. This is when Masters shot him. And Drake was shot in the back. From what I found, Masters is still in prison with a possibility of release sometime in 2023. And Herman was released in 2012. He was charged with kidnapping, but that's it. This last one is also having a trigger warning because it deals with sexual abuse or sexual assault. But there is no great detail to it, so I don't know how sensitive people are. But once again, if I figured out how to do it, I'll put the the timestamp there of where you fast forward to. Uh, the last crime that I found that occurred at Hummel Park that's been documented is that of 12-year-old Amber Harris. And this happened in 2006. Roy Ellis Jr., who was 57 at the time, was convicted of first-degree murder for killing Amber. Her remains were found May of 2006, and she had been missing since November 29th of 2005. Uh, the autopsy showed that she died of blunt force trauma. There was no sign of sexual assault, but her remains were too decomposed to tell. Her book bag was found near Ellis's home, and DNA connected him to it. In her book bag was a sweater and her pants. During the trial, his former stepdaughters testified that he repeatedly sexually assaulted them when they were 12 and 14 years old. He also fathered a child with each of them. But I couldn't find anything about him getting in trouble for that. I just found that as the mentioned in this. In an appeal, he attempted to get their testimony thrown out of the court, stating that, but the court stated that since the state evidence showed his DNA in that case, they could not throw it out, and that the error was harmless because they would have found out eventually anyway. At the time of Amber's death, Ellis was already registered as a level 3 sex offender. He had previously served time in jail for sexual assault on children, which I'm assuming were his previous stepchildren, but since they redact the people's names, I don't know. He unfortunately is up for parole in 2031. It's sad that a place that should bring so much joy to people is a place that brings so much turmoil. So many crimes have occurred here, and so many lives have been affected. I'm not sure about the supernatural aspect of the park or the colony of albinos, but there have been many strange happenings here. I just hope that those who have had crimes done against them can rest easily. And it's still a beautiful place to go if you're in the area. It's a beautiful drive. And that shouldn't be a reason to go there or not to go there. So, once again, if you have any questions, put them in my comments. I try to answer every comment. And please subscribe. Please apply for notification. Please like it. Just a little thumbs up. And stay tuned for more myth, mystery, and murder on my True Crimes podcast. Have a great day.